Hi everybody, just a short video today. I'm doing a follow-up to the Valeton GP200 that I reviewed about 6 months ago, and I'll put a link to the video here if you've not seen it already. So I've had lots of comments asking me what I think about it 6 months later. Am I still using it? And I'm going to get into that. But before I do, I just want to thank you so much for all the comments that you've left. When I first started this channel, it was just to put my own original music up, the occasional cover, and have a bit of fun. And doing this review has really sparked something. I've got such amazing comments from you. I really want to thank you. That I think I might do some more reviews. I'm not at the point yet where companies are sending me equipment. So anything I review, I've either got it already or will have to buy with my own hard-earned cash. But not only am I a guitar player, but I'm a producer as well. I also teach audio production at master's level at university. So I'll be doing a bit of studio stuff as well, giving you tips and tricks, hopefully. Anyway, let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like to see. Back to the GP200. What do I think 6 months later? I love it. I love it. I can say hand on heart, since I got it, I have not used this on a session once. Not once. It's not been switched on since I got the Valeton. This Kemper has served me really well. I used to be a guitar tech for many bands like Cradle of Filth and Down and Trivium, all sorts of metal bands. But I got this to work with Cradle of Filth. And it was just superb, the Kemper, really was. It was a game changer because when you're doing big festivals, 1 minute you could be in, I don't know, Mexico City, and then a week later you'd be in the Philippines. And when you're renting equipment, it can be a little bit tired sometimes, especially when we were using Mesa Boogies. They eat vacuum tubes for breakfast and they can sound really dull after a while. And that's before you factor in the fact that if you're putting an SM57 in front of the cab to mic it up for front of house, 57s can vary greatly and some of them can sound really dull and horrible. So even after 3 or 4 days, the front of house sound guy for Cradle of Filth was like, this is brilliant. They just sound consistently good. And of course, they can fit very neatly in the overhead compartment, in a case, of course, on an aeroplane to go around the world. And that's been around the world with me many, many times. And it has been fantastic. But does anyone want to buy it? I'm going to sell it. Because the Valeton, there's just something about it. I love the simplicity. Now, one of the pluses that the Kemper has is it will take a snapshot. It will sample your amp sounds. So if you've got amp sounds that you love and you want to profile them, the Kemper will do that. This will not. This is a simulator. But it's got all the simulations you need. One of the things I didn't even talk about on the original video is for bass. Someone asked, does it do bass? I was like, you know what, that's a good question, because in my studio, I play a lot of bass. I've got an SWR rig back there. I've got an Ampeg DI pedal, which sounds really good. Thought, I'll give it a crack. God, the bass amp sounds are really, really good. So it's fantastic. I can just leave this plugged in all the time to my system, and it now furnishes all my needs in the studio for guitar and bass. And the bass sounds are utterly brilliant. You've got the usual Ampeg. There's a Vox bass model in there. There's a Mesa bass. Big eye-opener was the Alembic. Now, a lot of people don't know that Alembic made amps. A lot of people haven't even heard of Alembic basses. Stanley Clarke very famously plays. Mark King had an Alembic bass as well. Very, very expensive basses, but they have amazing bass amps. And there's a great simulation of an Alembic bass amp. I use it a lot now. Not only in my own studio, I've probably done, in the last 6 months, I've probably done 5 or 6 paid professional sessions. I'm using the Valeton. Couple of really big studios as well, big name studios with top engineers. And, you know, of course, I'm an engineer myself, and you feel that you want to give it your all with your art and craft. And so the engineer would mic up a Fender amp, like, oh, no, I don't think we should use that, you know. And they'd mic up a Fender amp, and I'd listen to it and I go, you know what, I think I can get a fatter tone out of the Valeton. So we'd A-B it, and I go, oh, God, yeah, okay, let's go with that. It's really paid for itself already. If you're on the fence, if you're just wondering, just get it. I'm finding there's a couple of sounds, couple of amps that I use all the time. I'm a big believer, you know, like in the Kemper, you can have 1,000 different amps in there. Just pick 2 or 3. Just pick what you like. So For my clean sounds, I find that I'm using the Roland JC120 quite a lot. I had one of those in the 80s anyway. They're brilliant amps. I know Metallica use them for that very DI kind of clean sound. Really, really nice amp. So I use that a lot for clean. That's not to say it's brittle, actually. It is a transistor amp, the JC120, but it still sounds, it's got a fatness to it as well. I'll also use, I think I'm using the Lone Star as well. Mess with the Lone Star, which is nice for cleany, bluesy, maybe a little bit grittier. But the one I use all the time is the Soldano model. Again, if you get one of these, turn the effects off, just get down to the bare bones, sort out your amp sound. And if you use a different guitar, it will change your settings. You'll have to alter that very slightly, but dial in the sound that you want. If I can, I'm not even sure whether I can put files up there, but if I can, I'll give you some of my favorite settings on Soldanos and so on, and the clean settings. But yeah, my advice is strip it all back. Try different amp cabs as well. Again, you don't need 50,000 impulse responses. You just need 3 or 4 that you like. So just find what you like. And then it's just a question of programming different effects for different parts of your live setup, whatever it is. Speaking of which, people are asking me what I use for monitoring. Now, predominantly at the moment, I'm not really touring. So I'm only using this in the studio. I'm just using my studio monitors. I know you might be able to see I've got some Yamahas in the background, but my main ones, I've got some Focals and I've got the little MTM IK multimedia tabletop speakers. This sounds great through all of them. For live, I have done a couple of solo gigs where I've put the Valeton straight through a PA system. Sounds amazing. I think if I were playing in a band, let's say you're in a bar band or something like that, you might want to consider getting an FR cabinet to plug it into. You don't really want to be dealing with this with monitors if you're in a small gig situation. Some of you may or may not know, but I play guitar for the arena tour of the War of the Worlds, Jeff Wayne's big famous album. And last year I had a big pedal board. I had an amplifier amp sim. This absolutely blows it out of the water. There's not even, it's an unfair comparison. It's just the amplifier is what the brand name is. Utterly, utterly shit compared to this. As and when and if we go out with the War of Worlds next time, this will definitely be used live. Because the good thing is on the big arena tours or any big shows, we all have the in-ear monitors with a great monitor engineer. So I know that I'm going to have a really, really nice sound every night. That will 100% be used. I've had a lot of people in the comments saying, you know, I've already got the Line 6 and this is equal to it. And there's some bits that are better about it. I have no experience with the Line 6. All I know is I absolutely love this. The Soldano is worth buying this for just for that. It is such a good, if you've never played a Soldano, you can get really, really hot, hard rock tones bordering on metal, especially if you put a distortion pedal on the front, you can go totally crazy with it. Or you can back it off and just have a really nice, dirty, bluesy sound. I know that Clapton in the era of his Journeyman album, which is a really good album if you're into Clapton, he used a Soldano Slow 100. And this is what's simulated on that. But it really rips as well. I use it all the time. It's like a hot-rodded Marshall. But it's just got a bit more balls, a bit more low end in it, and not quite as nasally. Listen, one of the things that I was worried about on my original review was the digital output. Because with my Kemper, I've always recorded with it digitally using SPDIF. And it slightly concerned me that the only way of recording digitally is through the little USB-C slot here. But it maxes out at a sample rate of 44.1. And I generally am on 48 or sometimes higher. And I was like, ooh, I don't know how I'm going to get on with that. What I found is I'm just coming out of the balanced XLR straight into my Apollo interface. Sounds absolutely great. There's no worry in that department. I'm not in the slightest. There's not even a hint of me that is worried about that anymore. So it's just a non-issue. So yeah, whether you're a guitar player or a bass player, this thing does it all. I strongly urge you, if you're looking for a digital amp, my God, we are so lucky now. I don't know anything that comes close to this. I recently got the software version of the Tone X from IK Multimedia. I'm a huge IK Multimedia fan, I really am, and I'd heard good things about the pedal. Anyway, I've got some software, the software version, which should be identical. It's not doing it for me. It's nowhere near as good as the Valeton. I think what I will do is I am going to buy a pedal version of the Tone X because the reviews have been so good. I just can't believe that the software version and the hardware version are the same, because I found the software version, frankly, unusable. It sounds like the amp sims where you get that really nasally. It's got this really horrible sound to it. Don't like it at all. The Valeton absolutely pisses on it as far as I'm concerned. So I'll be very interested to buy the pedal. I might buy a second-hand one to do a review and put it against the Valeton and then sell which one I feel is the inferior one. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. The little things that, again, I mentioned this in the first video, but it's worth pointing out again. If I give you a side view, the foot buttons at the front are lower than the ones at the back. And it sounds like such a basic thing, but why doesn't everyone do this? Because when you've got your stage boots on or whatever you're wearing, it's so easy just to hit multiple buttons. If you're going for the back one, it'd be so easy to hit that. But the fact that that is lower, it just makes life so much easier. You're not doing like a ballet dancing routine, just using the tips of your toes. So just little things like that. It is so well thought out. But at the end of the day, it's all about the noise. It sounds great. Listen, if you're on the fence, just buy one. I've got a link to an affiliate link there. It just helps me put a few quid in my pocket, like. So if you want to buy one, there's a link down below. Let me know what you think about it when you get it. See you on the next video.